It's been 430 days since the announcement of Grand Theft Auto 6 with that whopping trailer back on the 5th of December 2023. And since then, the marketing for this much anticipated upcoming title from Rockstar Games has been, well, non-existent. And thus we've entered the release year of 2025 knowing simply nothing more. And this has of course led many to worry that the game might be delayed. At this stage, there's still 7, 8 if not 9 months before that fall 2025 release window, so I don't necessarily share those concerns based on what is in effect nothing. Though I will say having notifications on for Rockstar Games' Twitter account has been transformed from a weekly moment of fleeting excitement to a once every 168-hour queue to evaluate my life choices. And naturally every so often, and by that I mean reliably twice a week, either some crazed, borderline schizophrenic theory emerges from the online community surrounding this anticipated game, or we get a sliver of what is objectively not news, in the form of reiteration and the opinions of those we deem to have authority in this area of discussion. This time around it was yesterday evening's Take-Two Interactive earnings call that simply saw the fleeting reiteration that the game is penned for fall 2025. Therefore, and I have to stress this, as things stand, there is no delay, and you can chill out. Or can you? I'll get onto that properly in a minute, but basically, I sort of use moments of unnews such as this as something of a segue to talk about various things I've seen discussed regarding this game. You're probably wondering why not just engage in discussions on Twitter, to which I simply argue, I value my sanity at least a little bit. So let's quickly address the elephant in the room. Apparently, according to IGN's tweet at least, I don't think this is indicative of what the article goes into, at least not from me glazing over it, we can now breathe a sigh of relief regarding the GTA 6 Fall 2025 release window. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we absolutely can't. Now don't necessarily panic, as it's not a big deal either way. If the game needs to be delayed, ultimately it's for a reason, and nobody wants GTA 6 to hit that Fall 2025 release window as much as Rockstar and Take-Two. But delays can happen at any time. They don't necessarily need to be discerned months in advance from the release. They can occur as soon as a couple weeks before, and the February earnings call deals entirely with fiscal 25. So at this stage there's no need for Take-Two Interactive to go revising that release schedule internally for the sake of investors, as they then don't talk about fiscal 26 and their plans for that in any capacity whatsoever. Therefore it's just a rule of not delivering negative news and then not providing a positive follow-through. However, at the earnings call in May that will actually begin to be discussed. Take for instance, we learned of the clarification of fall 2025 in May of last year. So ultimately, though it may turn out that there is no delay later on, them saying there's no delay now means nothing. So I advise caution. There's no such thing as deciding not to delay something. There's only such a thing as deciding to delay something. So, confirmation that there's been no delay as of yet is not confirmation that there will not be a delay later. It's still too early to judge, and trust me, if such a thing is decided, it will not take long for us to hear about it. That being said, me saying this is no reason to necessarily be pessimistic either. In an IGN article that I read while on the throne, Take-Two Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick, though fairly conservative in discussing the development of Grand Theft Auto 6, did suggest that as things stand, the company is optimistic about the fall 2025 release window, also suggesting there is a risk of it slipping to 2026, but he doesn't want to jinx it. And I'm not sure I would either. That being said, I can't think of many reasons why, regardless of when it actually releases, Grand Theft Auto 6's financial success wouldn't be as close to a foregone conclusion as possible. So if anyone could justify delaying the game just to make it that little bit better, it's Rockstar and Take-Two. Ultimately, we'll simply have to see things unfold. Now, on to point 2, where the bloody hell is this game's marketing? With every week of radio silence, you can feel the frustration among many, at least those who vocalise it online, who, it's worth remembering, only represent a small minority of everybody who's probably anticipating this game. In fact, the other week I was at the pub with a couple of mates and one of them didn't even realise GTA 6 had been announced, and yet expressed his excitement for it. And this was well over a year after it actually had. But to talk on the point of marketing, look at it this way. Is it better to market the game over the course of a couple of years, or simply over the course of a few months? And you might argue, why would they announce the game as early as they had to? And if you remember, they were kind of forced. In wake of a major leak, they had to reveal the game existed over 3 years ago, and that undoubtedly had a knock-on effect. It's entirely possible we saw the first trailer before it was ever intended. In fact, we know we saw it earlier than intended, even if only marginally, because the trailer itself got leaked. And if I'm not mistaken, that was out of YouTube's back end. So Rockstar simply reclaimed control over the situation by dropping the trailer a few hours early. And so everything we know and have seen up until this point has in some capacity been influenced, at the very least, at some point by a leak. And the fact that that leak actually showed some footage of the game, well, showed footage of a rudimentary build of the game, certainly influenced Rockstar confirming GTA 6 even existed to begin with, but may also have influenced them dropping a trailer so that they actually have something that they've shown us. And naturally, the curious eyes are off the leak and back on their trailers, their marketing. That might explain why we're now well over a year past that Trailer 1 release date, and we still don't have a Trailer 2 or even screenshots, even if a good year gap between the first and second trailer is fairly normal for Rockstar games in the past. Therefore, I reckon that the bulk of marketing will occur over the course of a few months, as that's where it will make the most impact. There'll be a few months of trailers, screenshots, information galore, and then the game will release. And that brings me to a nonsensical sentiment I see people bringing up in online discussion, that somehow this game doesn't need marketing, and therefore we shouldn't expect any. And if you belong to this camp, then I think I understand how you think you came to that conclusion. But you're absolutely 110% incorrect if you think that this game isn't going to get any more marketing. And yes, to an extent, it is going to need it. Not because it needs it to survive. People will buy this game on its name alone. We agree on that. But the purpose of marketing is to advertise a product to as wide an audience as possible. Regardless of how you look at things, the end result will be more sales with marketing as opposed to without. Therefore, it would be fundamentally stupid for Rockstar to simply not market their game. And investors will be more confident in a company doing everything they can to maximize that bottom line. So in the context of being a pivotal gauge point to how far out the game is, marketing is still essential. Furthermore, marketing is an opportunity to showcase the game and show us how it's different from Grand Theft Auto 5, for instance, or indeed Red Dead Redemption 2, what improvements have been made, and why, despite having played previous Rockstar games, we should buy and play this one. It's the best way to show that having played one title does not mean you've played them all. And if any competition existed, it could showcase how this game differs. Marketing serves a variety of functions in the run-up to a release, communicating to consumers what they're getting and why they should get it, ensuring as many prospective consumers as possible see it, and it's also a performance to the investors that no matter how big their brand actually is, they're not complacent. And it also gives people something to repeatedly talk about, even if they're not actively engaging with the game itself directly, and word of mouth as a result is the strongest. So to respond to that point, I typically see raised in response to people wondering where the marketing is. There's no world in which we don't get more trailers, screenshots, key art, rundowns of new and improved gameplay systems amounting to the full shebang. It would be as naive and idiotic to expect otherwise as it would be for Rockstar and Take-Two to do otherwise. And since their intent is to utterly shatter records, they're going to want a massive advertising campaign, let alone a modest one. It's just a case of when. And with fall 2025 as our window, regardless of whether or not it gets delayed to a later date, you'd at the very least hope that at some point this year we'd see something. Whether that's marketing ramp up fully, or a selection of crisp, lovely screenshots to analyse to death to tide us over in the event we receive a delay. To pay some mind to the idea that somehow the online community surrounding this game are doing the heavy lifting for Rockstar in this department, I think as a collective that's an overestimation of significance by comparison to the overall mass of the player base that are going to be playing this game. So while I'm sure they do take note of the fan base discussing the game and the loony theories to an extent, I doubt it has a noticeable impact on Rockstar's marketing schedule. Another thing I saw hit news articles a few days ago was speculation by former Rockstar Games animator Mike York, suggesting it's possible the game is now at Rockstar in a playable state start to finish, and development is probably now oriented towards polishing the game basically, which I suppose has some gravity coming from a man who used to work at the company on these games, but I think it's worth keeping in mind that he's not giving his opinions now for the sake of people making news articles about his opinions. However, logically, I would imagine that's where the game is up to internally as well. There's a lot of stuff people can get up to in these games, and it needs to be ensured their playthrough doesn't sustain a crippling bug because they didn't account for it. So yeah, I'd assume the test and polish phase is going to take some time. And there's only, as things stand, a few months left. Therefore, that suggestion logically makes sense. And that, thankfully, brings me to the end of my points of discussion for today's video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you put up with me for the past 10 minutes, I massively appreciate it. Here's a clip of a dog getting a head rub.
Puppy.
Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. Only if you want to, of course. And maybe if you're so inclined, pop me a follow on some social media. And who knows, maybe every once in a while I might wind up posting something. In the meantime, there are plenty more videos in the works. I've got a couple of Skyrim videos on the burn at the moment, and I've also been playing through Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So who knows, maybe there'll be some content to come from that. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, with any luck, I hope to be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.